Welcome to St. Anthony's Parish in Davenport, Iowa. I'm Dr. Vincent McLean, and today we're going to do a tour of the church. We're going to look at the body of the church, we're going to look at the sanctuary, and we're going to look at the sacristy in order to review some of the elements and vessels that are used in the Roman Catholic liturgy. We start our tour of St. Anthony's, and this Catholic church is built like many Catholic church in the form of a cross. So you will have two sides and a center part. We are in the narthex of the church, which is the gathering place, the entrance where people come in, where processions begin and liturgies begin. As we enter the church, as in all traditional Catholic churches, this is called the nave of the church. This is where the pews are. This is basically where the faithful come for the liturgy of the church. You'll see on the right and the left hand we have confessionals and a choir loft above, which is a traditional way in which Catholic churches were built. The third part of the traditional church is the APSE, and the APSE is that area above the main altar. As we look at the high altar, the main focus is the tabernacle. The tabernacle is a Latin word which means golden tent, where the Blessed Sacrament is stored. To the left of the altar is the sanctuary lamp, which is lit whenever the Blessed Sacrament is present. The only time that is taken out is at the end of the ceremonies on Holy Thursday and Good Friday. As we move to the left in the sanctuary, we come to the credence table. And the credence table is where the lavabo dish, the cruets, and those vessels used for Mass are stored. Next to the credence table is the side altar dedicated to the Blessed Mother at St. Anthony's Parish. And in front of that, because it's the month of May, we have a May altar. Directly in front of the side altar of the Blessed Mother is the AMBO. The AMBO is that platform from which the readings from the Old Testament and New Testament are read, and the Gospel, and the homily is delivered. To the right of the main altar is the other side altar, which is dedicated to St. Joseph. Both side altars have relics embedded in their mensa so that Mass can be celebrated at either of the side altars. At St. Anthony's, directly in front of the St. Joseph altar is the baptismal font. This is where all baptisms take place. Next to the baptismal font is the Paschal candle. The Paschal candle is blessed and lit at the Easter Vigil. It is lit during baptisms, it's lit during funerals. It is a symbol of the light of Christ in the world. Next to the Paschal candle in the sanctuary at St. Anthony's is the presider's chair, which the priest uses during the sacrifice of the Mass. The next major element in the sanctuary is the mensa, or the table on which the sacrifice of the Mass is offered. You can see on the mensa at this time there are two books. One is the sacramentary, which is the formula for saying of Mass. The other is the lectionary, from which the Gospel and the epistles are read. Every consecrated altar requires that an altar stone be buried in the very top of the mensa. In that stone is a relic of a martyr, and if that's not possible, the Church has decreed that it can be the relics of any canonized saint. Each of the side altars also have an altar stone embedded in their surface. Every church has a place where they store the sacred chrisms. The chrisms are blessed at the Chrism Mass prior to Holy Week each year by the bishop of the diocese. St. Anthony's has their ambry, place where they store the sacred chrisms, in the altar of St. Joseph. There are 3 oils there. The first is the oil of chrism, which is mixed with perfume, consecrated by the bishop, used for ordinations, baptisms, consecration of bishops. And the second chrism there is that of the dying, used for the sacrament of the sick. The third oil is the oil of catechumens, and that is used at the Easter Vigil to prepare catechumens for baptism. When a bishop consecrates an altar, he uses the chrism, which is olive oil, salt, and ashes, and that is smeared over the top of the mensa, and with a set of liturgical prayers that consecrates the altar and prepares it for the sacrifice of the Mass. The next area that we're going to look at is the sacristy. The sacristy is the place where the priest vests for Mass, and we're going to review the vestments and then look at the vessels. The first thing that I would like to point out to you is the alb. And the alb is simply a white garment, and it simply means white. It represents the baptismal garment, and when the priest puts that on, he covers himself and he becomes the person of Christ in the sacrifice of the Mass. Along with the alb is a cincture, which is used around the waist. Next, in the vestment the priest vests, is the stole, which goes around their neck, which is a sign of their priestly ordination. The chasuble, or vestments which cover all of that, have various liturgical colors. Pink is worn on Gaudete and Laetare Sunday, one in Advent and one in Lent. This garment is only worn twice during the liturgical year. The green vestments, which is a sign of hope, are used during ordinary time, and you will see this vestment probably most, because this is used most of the time during the liturgical year. The purple vestment is used during Lent and Advent. It can be used at funerals and for occasions of solemn sadness. The red vestments, which signifies martyrs, is also worn on Good Friday, Palm Sunday, and the Feast of Pentecost. The white vestment is used on high feast days. Sometimes parishes will use a gold vestment for Easter and Christmas, but white vestments are acceptable, and it's also used at funerals and on feasts of the Blessed Virgin. Vessels used for the sacrifice of the Mass begin with cruets, which contain the wine and water, the lavabo dish, which the priest washes his hands, the towel that the priest dries his hands. We move to the corporal, and the corporal is laid like a tablecloth on the mensa and collects all of any of the fragments that drop from the hosts. A purificator is also used. A pall, paten, and chalice. Priest puts his host here, is covered by the pall. This is a ciborium, which stores extra hosts, and this is the chalice used for the wine with the purificator. Also, we find in the sacristy a sink, which is used for the rinsing of altar linens. The drain goes directly into the ground. So any fragment of the Blessed Sacrament does not go into a sewer, but goes directly into the ground. The next item that we're going to look at is the monstrance, and the monstrance is used for benediction, and it's also used for adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. The host is placed in the center and on the main altar during the time of the exposure of the Blessed Sacrament. The next vessel that we're going to look at that contains the holy water called the aspergitorium, and is used for sprinkling of the faithful on high feast days. The last vessel that we want to look at is the thurible and boat. These are used at benediction and on masses of high feast days. The charcoal is put in the thurible, and the incense is placed on it out of the boat.